Hi everyone. Welcome back. We're glad to have you with us today. Let's start. I sat at the breakfast table, sipping on my steaming cup of coffee while the golden morning sunlight poured through the kitchen window. Across from me sat Amanda, her eyes locked onto the pages of the local newspaper, her hand absent-mindedly stirring her tea. To my right was Jessica, scrolling endlessly through her phone, her face frozen in that familiar expression of teenage boredom. The quiet clatter of silverware and the occasional rustle of the paper were the only sounds breaking the morning silence. 5 years into our marriage, our mornings had settled into a rhythm, a routine that was both comforting and fragile. Amanda had endured a lot before we met. Her divorce from John was nothing short of a nightmare, a storm she had to fight her way through after he got arrested for assaulting her during one of his drunken fits. The trauma left marks, some you could see and others buried deep. Amanda rarely brought up those dark days, but the way her voice tightened whenever his name came up said enough. We crossed paths shortly after she closed that chapter of her life. A mutual friend hosted a dinner party that neither of us had any real desire to attend, but somehow sparks flew that night. Maybe it was her laugh, bright and infectious, or the way she truly listened when I talked. A year of dating later, we tied the knot. Jessica, who was now 18, came along with the deal. I knew from the start that being a stepdad would not be a walk in the park, especially with someone as closed off as Jessica. She was polite, sure, but there was always this invisible wall between us that I could not seem to break. And I got it. I was not her dad, never pretended to be. I just tried to find my place in their world, to love and support them in the ways I could. If Jessica saw me as nothing more than her mom's husband, so be it. I had made my peace with that. But lately, Amanda felt like a stranger. The warmth that once wrapped around us had given way to a cold distance. Small changes stacked up. Fewer conversations, less affection, and her constant excuse of being too tired. Then there was her phone, always in her hand, her eyes glued to the screen. She would quickly tuck it away whenever I entered the room, and believe me, I noticed. I am not blind. These were red flags, glaringly obvious. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe I was doing something wrong, or not doing enough. But as the days dragged on, my doubts only grew louder. So, I did what I felt I had to do. I hired a private investigator. $2,000 later, I had my answer, and it was a bitter pill to swallow. Amanda was seeing John again, the same man who shattered her life once before. I thought she had left him in the past, but apparently not. Today was the day it all came to light. Amanda folded her newspaper with deliberate care and placed it neatly on the table. Her hands lingered on its edges, as if she needed the courage hidden in its folds. Finally, she looked up at me, her lips pressed together before she spoke softly. "Matt, I have something to tell you," she said. I set my coffee mug down, my eyes locked on hers. "Go on, Amanda," I replied, my voice calm but firm. She hesitated, her fingers nervously twisting the corner of the tablecloth. "I will be gone for a month," she said, her words breaking the silence like a stone sinking into still water. I stayed quiet, leaning in slightly. "All right," I answered flatly, watching her brace herself. "I mean it. I will be staying with John," she clarified, her voice gaining strength. "It is his birthday month, and I want to make it special." Her words landed like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. My chest burned, but I refused to lose my cool. "So," I said, my tone sharp, "what exactly will you be doing there? Cooking? Cleaning? Or sharing his bed?" I paused, taking a sip of my coffee. Could he not just hire someone for that? Why does my wife have to play housekeeper? Her eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you even saying? I am not a maid or a hooker. I will be there as his partner." I set my cup down, slow and deliberate, fixing her with a steady gaze. "But you are my wife. Do you not think what you are planning to do with him is cheating on me? Cheating on our marriage?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. Amanda did not flinch. She did not even hesitate. Instead, she locked her eyes with mine and said, "No, it is not cheating because I told you about it." I nodded slowly, the sheer absurdity of her logic sinking in like a weight tied to my chest. I took a deep breath, holding my composure. All right then, what exactly do you expect me to do while my wife spends a month playing house with another man? Sit here and wait for you to come back. My voice was measured, but the irritation was creeping in. Amanda let out a frustrated sigh, throwing her hands up. Her voice was sharp, tinged with exasperation. Oh, come on, Matt. I have needs, things I need to fulfill. And only John can do that for me. I did not miss a beat. Needs, huh? What kind of needs are we talking about? Like tying you up to a bed and spanking you with a leather strap? I leaned in, my words cutting like a knife. Are you talking about those needs? Her face went pale. She knew I had seen the texts, the videos. Those images were burned into my mind, things I could never unsee. But I kept my expression calm. You have desires, I continued, my voice low. What about mine? Do I get to fulfill my desires, too? Her jaw tightened, and she threw her hands up again. Fina, do whatever you want. Just know that once I get back, I expect you to be the faithful husband you promised to be. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, my tone turning cold and deliberate. And what if my desires are not satisfied in 30 days? What if I find a better source of satisfaction? Someone who makes me not want to come back to this. I let the words hang in the air, watching them settle. Amanda's expression twisted in irritation, but before she could fire back, I turned to Jessica, who had been sitting quietly the entire time, watching this unfold like it was her favorite reality show. Her lips were curled into a smug smirk, her eyes filled with defiance. What do you think, Jess? I asked, my voice steady but sharp. Should your mother risk her marriage for a month with another man? Jessica did not even blink. Her smirk deepened as she crossed her arms. Mom has her own needs and desires, Matt. You do not own her. She is not your slave. She is free to drink from whatever watering hole she chooses. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was not just defiance. It was glee. She wanted me to feel this way. She was not just watching from the sidelines. She was part of this. She wanted to see me fall apart. I took a long breath, raised my hands in a gesture of surrender, and said calmly, all right, if this is what you both want, I will not stand in your way. Amanda's lips curled into a smile, smug, self-satisfied, like she had won some game. But I was not finished. However, I said, my voice steady and cold, I want you to sign a document. We're going to make this separation official. For the next 30 days, I will not be responsible for you or your daughter in any way, financially or otherwise. And during that time, I will be free to do whatever I please. My desires will be taken care of without any obligations holding me back. Amanda narrowed her eyes at me, suspicion flickering across her face. How would that even work? I leaned back in my chair, keeping my demeanor calm. Simple. I'll call my lawyer right now. He will draw up the paperwork, and we can head to the courthouse tomorrow to make it official. That way, you can spend your month with John guilt-free. I let a faint smirk tug at the corner of my lips. And I will spend my month guilt-free, too. She crossed her arms, glaring at me. What is your angle, Matt? Why are you so calm about this? I stood up slowly, towering over her with an air of certainty. Because, Amanda, you made it clear you would not stop seeing him, no matter what I did. So, why would I stop you? I'm just clearing the path for both of us to get what we want. Jessica, still smirking, chimed in. Mom, it is a good idea. I did not think Matt would be this supportive. I turned to her, matching her arrogance with a cool smile. Oh, Jess, you have no idea. Without another word, I walked out of the room, pulling out my phone. I dialed my lawyer, keeping my voice simple and direct. Do it. By the afternoon, my lawyer was sitting across from Amanda in our living room. The papers were spread neatly in front of her. She barely glanced at them before picking up the pen and signing with a flourish. She was radiating confidence, completely unaware of the storm brewing behind my calm facade. I leaned back, watching her with detached amusement. When she finished, I let a small, calculated smile curl my lips. It is done. She looked up at me with that same smug expression. Good. That evening, I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. Where are you going? Amanda asked, her voice casual. Out for a drink, I said without looking back. I did not offer an explanation. I did not make excuses. I just walked out the door. I was not drunk when I finally came home that night, but I made sure to stay out late enough to avoid any conversation with Amanda. I walked through the front door, the house quiet and still, and headed straight to bed without a word. The next morning, we were standing side by side in the courtroom. Amanda stood there with a calm, composed expression, exuding confidence. The judge glanced over the papers before him, his face neutral. "Mrs. Amanda Dawson, did you have these documents reviewed by your attorney?" he asked, looking at her over his glasses. "For the next 30 days, your husband will not be responsible for your financial support or that of your daughter. He will also be free to do as he pleases. Are you in agreement with this?" Without hesitation, Amanda gave a firm nod. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge shrugged slightly and said, "All right then." That evening, I found Amanda bustling around the bedroom, packing her suitcase with more energy than I had seen in months. Her face practically glowed with happiness, a sharp contrast to the tension that had filled our home for so long. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with a detached expression. She glanced up at me, her excitement spilling over. "Oh, thank you, Matt. You have no idea how happy this makes me. I will make it up to you when I get back. I promise." Her words were almost laughable. I held back a bitter chuckle and gave her a faint smile instead. "Do not worry about that," I said evenly. "I will make sure I am happy." With that, I turned and walked out, my footsteps steady even as my mind raced with thoughts. Everything was set, every detail accounted for. It was time to put my plan in motion. I have always considered myself a logical man, someone who keeps emotions in check and focuses on practical solutions. But standing there that day, watching Amanda pack her bags to be with her ex-husband, I felt something unfamiliar. An ache, a hollow sense of loss gnawed at the edges of my resolve. It was not just Amanda I had lost, it was something deeper. Then again, our marriage had been crumbling long before that moment. I had tried to help her, tried to give her daughter, Jessica, a better life. I worked overtime to put together a college fund for her. I bought her a car. I poured my time, energy, and money into making their lives easier. And for what? So Jessica could smugly remind me that I did not own her mother? So Amanda could chase after a man who had destroyed her once before? It sucked. But when has life ever promised to be a cakewalk? I could hear my high school science teacher's voice in my head, explaining Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now, it was time for my reaction. That evening, Amanda and Jessica packed up their things and left to stay with John. I watched from the window as they drove away, a calm mask on my face, but inside, a storm was brewing. I told myself I would let them go without making a scene. It was their choice, and I had already decided that I would not stand in their way. For the first few days, the silence in the house was almost peaceful. I kept my routine simple: coffee in the morning, a quiet dinner at night, and long walks to clear my head. But peace never lasts long. On the third day, my phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw Amanda's name on the screen. There was no message, just a picture. Curious, I opened it. It was a photo of Amanda and John, smiling together at what looked like a fancy restaurant. Amanda held up a glass of wine, and John had his arm draped casually over her shoulder. They both looked relaxed, happy, like they did not have a care in the world. I felt my stomach twist, but I kept scrolling. More photos followed. Amanda laughing on a boat. Jessica posing with John in front of a lake. A group selfie of the three of them at a barbecue, with the caption, "Having a great time." It was not just the images, it was the way they were sent. Deliberate. Calculated. They wanted me to see this. Jessica even added her own little comment under one of the pictures. "Wish you were here." "Oh wait, no, we don't." My blood boiled. At first, I told myself to let it go. They were trying to get under my skin, and I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me snap. But the more I looked at those pictures, the harder it became to hold back the anger simmering inside me. The next photo pushed me over the edge. It was a picture of John standing by the grill, flipping burgers, with Amanda leaning into him, her hand resting on his chest. Jessica stood beside them, giving the camera a peace sign. The caption read, "Our family is whole again." That did it. I clenched my jaw, my hands shaking as I set the phone down. My thoughts raced. After everything I had done for them, all the time, money, and energy I had poured into making their lives better, this was how they repaid me? Fine. If they wanted to act like I did not matter, I would show them how little they mattered to me now. I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and steady. The next morning, I woke up with a clear plan in my head. No more second-guessing. No more holding back. The first thing to go was the car I had bought for Jessica. It was a Honda, a car she had fallen in love with when she first saw it, even though she had complained about the color. Tough luck. She could pick whatever color she wanted for her next car, assuming John could buy it for her. I sold it that very day. Next, I turned my attention to our joint bank accounts. Amanda had no idea I had already moved most of our savings into a separate account under my name. Every dollar I had earned, every penny I had saved, was mine now. I transferred the rest to an offshore account, leaving the joint account empty. By the end of the day, I had over $2 million safely tucked away, out of Amanda's reach. Then came Amanda's car, the one she had always been so proud of, acting like it was the best thing I had ever done for her. She had flaunted it to her friends, showing it off at every opportunity. Too bad. That was gone too. I left her with nothing. No car. No money. No safety net. Let John take care of them now. Let him see how it feels to carry the burden I had carried for so long. And as for the house, it was far too big for me alone. Anyway, they had always complained about wanting something smaller and cozier, just like John's house. Well, they were already living there now. Might as well make that arrangement permanent. They would not be coming back here anytime soon. I sat back that evening, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring at my phone as the notifications started rolling in. First, Amanda. Then, Jessica. I knew they had discovered the empty bank accounts. I knew they had seen the missing cars. I took a slow sip, savoring the warmth of the alcohol as it slid down my throat. Then, with a smirk, I answered Amanda's frantic call. "Where are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking with panic. "Why is the bank account empty? Where is Jessica's car?" I leaned back, letting out a long breath. "I'm taking care of my desires," I said smoothly, before ending the call. The phone kept buzzing. First Amanda, then Jessica. Both of them called nonstop, leaving angry messages, demanding answers. I let it ring, let them sit in their anger, just like I had sat in mine. They wanted to play games? I was ready to play my own. It was my turn now. It was clear from the constant buzzing of my phone that Amanda and Jessica were furious, probably frantic. I had a pretty good guess why. By now, they must have gotten the notifications from the bank. The joint account was empty. The college fund? Gone. I could almost hear their panicked voices through the phone. They had no clue what hit them, and honestly, I was not surprised. Did they really think I would sit around and let them treat me like a fool while all my money stayed tied up in those accounts? Still, I did not pick up right away. The calls kept coming, each more frantic than the last. I let them stew for a while, let them process the mess I left behind. 3 days went by with my phone buzzing nonstop. 3 long, peaceful days. Eventually, I decided it was time to answer. I picked up the phone, keeping my voice calm and casual. "Hey, Amanda. How are you?" The moment she heard my voice, she unleashed a storm of insults, accusations, and guilt trips. Every word was like venom. She ranted about how heartless I was, how I had betrayed her and Jessica. She threw everything at me, stuff I could barely make sense of. Honestly, I expected it. I just sat there, letting her rant, waiting for her to wear herself out. When she finally fell silent, I leaned back in my chair and said, "I guess this is not the best time to talk. Bye." I hung up before she could say another word. This routine went on for 5 days. 5 straight days of Amanda screaming into the phone and me calmly hanging up. It became predictable. Her calls grew more frantic each time. Jessica even left a few voicemails, her tone dripping with outrage. But on the 6th day, something changed. When I answered, Amanda's voice was no longer filled with rage. Instead, there was an eerie calmness to it. "Why did you take all the money?" she asked. I took my time with the answer, letting her question hang in the air. Then I said, well, living in a five-star hotel in Jamaica is not cheap. How else do you think I could pay for it? Unless, of course, I drained the college fund that I paid for. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. What? Amanda's voice cracked. That was my dream vacation. How could you do that to me? I chuckled softly. Well, my dream was for you to stay faithful to me. That did not quite work out, did it? So, I went for the next best thing. A luxury trip to Jamaica with a young blonde Russian woman to keep me company. Amanda's sharp intake of breath was followed by an ear-piercing scream. You will not get away with this, Matt. Once I get back, I will make you pay. Her fury practically radiated through the phone, like fire burning through the line. But honestly, it did not faze me. I had expected this reaction. Amanda always overreacted. It was the same old drama. I took a slow breath, gripping the phone tighter. I can hear you are angry, I said calmly, almost too calmly. But that is not the kind of emotion I want to deal with right now. Before she could fire back, I pressed the end call button and set the phone down. There was no need for more of her threats. Not today. The month was almost over, and it was time for the next phase of my plan. I boarded a plane with a clear destination in mind. And this was not just another vacation. This was something bigger, a fresh start. Back when I was working as a software analyst, I had been offered a partnership at a firm in Bangkok. At the time, I had brushed it off, thinking I did not need a big change. But now, with nothing holding me back, nothing tying me to my old life, I figured why not? But not yet. There was something deeply satisfying about the thought of facing them, seeing the expressions on their faces when they realized everything had changed. No more pictures of their happy little family with John. No more smug texts. No more pretending I did not matter. I waited. The day finally came. Amanda and Jessica returned from their month-long escapade. I knew exactly when they would show up. They thought they would walk back into the life they left behind, into the house I paid for, into the comfort and security I had worked my ass off to provide. But they were in for a rude awakening. I sat on the front porch, sipping my coffee as if it were any other morning. The air was calm, quiet, but there was a storm brewing under my composed exterior. When Amanda's car, a rental, of course, pulled into the driveway, I stayed seated, watching them step out. Jessica spotted me first, her expression turning from surprise to confusion. Matt, she said cautiously, as if unsure why I was there. Amanda stepped out next, carrying a small suitcase. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a split second, I saw her confidence falter. They both walked toward me, Amanda forcing a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Matt, she began, her tone light and casual, like she was greeting an old friend. We're back. I took another sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably before I finally spoke. Back? To what, exactly? Amanda blinked, confused. To the house. Our home. Jessica rolled her eyes. What kind of question is that? This is our home. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head slowly. No, it is not. Amanda's smile dropped. What are you talking about? I stood, setting my coffee cup down on the porch railing, and walked toward them, closing the distance. My gaze never left Amanda's, cold and steady. You do not have a house anymore. You do not have cars anymore. You have nothing. Amanda froze, her face twisting in confusion and disbelief. What? What do you mean? I sold the house, I said, my voice low and deliberate. Sold Jessica's car. Took all the money from the accounts. You two wanted to play house with John? Well, now you are stuck with him. Jessica's mouth fell open, shock spreading across her face. You sold my car? Yep. I nodded slowly. That car I bought for you? It is gone. And the college fund? Gone too. I hope John is ready to step up, because I am done. Amanda's eyes filled with rage, but I saw the panic behind it. You cannot do that. You cannot just sell everything and leave us with nothing. Oh, but I can't. And I did. I stepped closer, letting them both feel the full weight of my words. Everything I gave you, every car, every dollar, every ounce of security, was because of me. And now, you are on your own. Jessica's face twisted with anger, her voice trembling. You are such a pathetic, bitter old man. I smirked. Maybe. But at least I am not the one who abandoned my home to play happy family with a man who nearly ruined my life. Amanda stepped forward, her fists clenched at her sides. You are cruel. I raised an eyebrow. No, Amanda. What is cruel is you leaving for 30 days to be with your ex, sending me pictures like you wanted me to hurt. What is cruel is pretending I did not exist while you played house with him. She tried to speak, but I cut her off. You wanted freedom? You have it. You wanted to make your own choices? Well, here are the consequences. Jessica crossed her arms, her voice sharp with defiance. We do not need you. I let out a quiet laugh, shaking my head. Good luck with that. Amanda's voice broke, desperation creeping in. Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? I shrugged, taking a step back toward my car. Not my problem. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my keys, and unlocked the car door. Before I got in, I turned to look at them one last time. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. Without waiting for a response, I slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Amanda standing there, motionless, while Jessica paced in frustration, her hands running through her hair. And I drove off. Only after I passed the town's city limit sign did I let out the breath I had been holding. The weight of it all settled in my chest, but I felt no regret. I had done what I needed to do. Amanda and Jessica thought they could walk away from me without consequences. They thought they could come back and pick up where they left off, as if nothing had happened. They were wrong. I did not run away. I did not leave quietly. I stood my ground, faced them, and made sure they knew exactly where they stood. And now I could finally move on. Life in Thailand suited me well. Bangkok's chaos was strangely calming, a perfect place to disappear in plain sight. The job offer I had accepted provided more than enough money to live comfortably, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. I had left Amanda and Jessica behind in that town with no house, no cars, and no money. I knew they would be scrambling to figure out what to do next. And, as I expected, they tried to go back to their safety net, John. I learned later through a mutual friend that Amanda and Jessica showed up at John's door with their suitcases in hand, expecting him to welcome them back. But John, being the selfish man he had always been, slammed the door in their faces. Not my problem, he had said, before walking away without a second glance. With no house, no support, and no money, Amanda and Jessica were left stranded. They bounced around, staying with friends for a while, but eventually, even those friends grew tired of them. Their calls for help became more desperate. Their pride, once so smug and unshakable, began to crumble. They were left with nothing. Months passed, and I thought I had seen the last of them. Until one day, a letter arrived at my Bangkok office, a summons to appear in court. I knew exactly what this was about before I even opened the envelope. Amanda and Jessica were trying to come after me for money. I smirked, shaking my head as I read the summons. They were accusing me of financial fraud, claiming that I had stolen money from our joint accounts and had unfairly taken assets that belonged to them. It was laughable, really, but they were clearly desperate. Desperation makes people reckless. And Amanda? She had always been willing to go to extreme lengths to get what she wanted. The court hearing was held back in the States, and I flew back for the trial. Walking into that courtroom, I saw Amanda and Jessica sitting at the plaintiff's table. They looked tired, worn out, shadows of the smug, confident women I remembered. Their expressions hardened when they saw me. I took my seat calmly, nodding at my lawyer, who had prepared well for this case. We both knew this was going to be a spectacle. Amanda's lawyers stood up, presenting their case. They claimed I had drained our joint accounts without permission, sold assets that did not belong to me, and left them penniless. They even presented documents, bank statements, supposed agreements between Amanda and me, and screenshots of text messages that allegedly proved I had agreed to split the money evenly. But something was off. I could see it in the judge's face as he examined the documents. They were forged. My lawyer stood up, his tone confident and measured. Your Honor, we would like to present evidence that these documents are fabricated. He laid out the proof, real bank statements, records of my legal ownership of the house and cars, and timestamps that showed Amanda's supposed agreements were created long after the separation. It did not take long for the truth to come out. Amanda and Jessica had forged the evidence, hoping to sway the court in their favor. The judge's expression hardened as he turned to Amanda. "Mrs. Dawson, you are aware that presenting false evidence is a serious offense?" Amanda's face paled. I did not know." Jessica jumped in, her voice frantic. "We had no choice. He took everything from us. We were just trying to get what's fair." The judge silenced her with a stern glare. "Fair? You think forging documents and lying in a court of law is fair?" Amanda tried to speak again, but the judge cut her off. "Enough!" He shuffled through the papers before delivering his verdict. "The evidence presented by the plaintiffs is fraudulent. Therefore, their claims are dismissed. Furthermore, due to the severity of the forgery, I am imposing a financial penalty on the plaintiffs in the amount of $50,000. Amanda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Jessica's eyes widened in disbelief. The judge continued, "This court will not tolerate deceit. The plaintiffs knowingly attempted to manipulate this court with false evidence, and they will be held accountable." Amanda tried to protest. "But, Your Honor, we have nothing." The judge leaned forward, his expression cold. "You should have thought of that before you lied." As we left the courtroom, Amanda and Jessica caught up with me in the hallway. Their anger had given way to desperation. "Matt, please," Amanda said, her voice trembling. "We are sorry. We have nothing. We need help." I stared at them, feeling nothing but cold detachment. Jessica, who had once mocked me with her smug arrogance, stood there with tears in her eyes. Amanda reached out, placing a hand on my arm. "We made mistakes, but you do not have to do this. We're family." I shook my head slowly. "Family? No, Amanda. Family does not treat each other the way you two treated me." Jessica stepped forward. "We were wrong, okay, but we're still your family." I met her gaze, my expression hard. "No, you made your choice. Now you get to live with it." Amanda's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, I saw the weight of her choices finally settle on her. They had gambled everything and lost. Without another word, I turned and walked away. Back in Bangkok, I sat on my balcony overlooking the bustling city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I took a sip of my whiskey, letting the warmth settle in my chest. It was over. Amanda and Jessica were buried and dead, left with nothing but the consequences of their actions. John did not want them. Their friends had abandoned them. And now, even the courts had turned against them. They had no home, no money, no future. And me? I was finally free. Months passed, and life continued on. I stayed in Thailand, building a new life from the ground up. My work was rewarding, the people were friendly, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. But Amanda and Jessica? They were ghosts of the past, clinging to a life they had destroyed with their own hands. I occasionally heard updates from mutual friends. Amanda had taken odd jobs to scrape by, but her reputation was ruined. Everyone in town knew about the court case, the forgery, and the debt she and Jessica owed. They were shunned by those they once considered friends. The very people who had once admired Amanda's confident facade now saw her for what she truly was, a desperate, broken woman. Jessica, once so defiant, had dropped out of college. With no car, no college fund, and no support from her mother, she was stuck working at a diner to make ends meet. Her smug arrogance had vanished, replaced by quiet resentment. And John? He had moved on to another woman, a younger, wealthier woman. Amanda and Jessica had tried to reach out to him again, but he slammed the door in their faces. Again, it was poetic justice. One day, while sipping my morning coffee on my balcony, my phone buzzed with a message from an old friend back home. It was a picture, a shot of Amanda and Jessica standing outside a cheap motel, their clothes stuffed into garbage bags. They looked exhausted, defeated. "They've hit rock bottom," the message read. I stared at the picture for a long time. There was a time when I would have felt pity for them, a time when I would have wanted to help. But that time had passed. I put my phone down and took a sip of my coffee, the warm breeze carrying the scent of jasmine through the air. It was done. Months turned into a year. I continued to grow in my new life, meeting new people, building new memories. I even found a woman named Sophia. She was nothing like Amanda. Warm, kind, and genuine. She knew my story, the whole messy truth, and she accepted me for who I was. One evening, we sat together on the beach, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Sophia leaned her head on my shoulder and asked, "Do you ever think about them? Your ex-wife and her daughter?" I thought for a moment, letting the question linger in the air. Sometimes, I admitted, but not with anger anymore. She looked up at me, her dark eyes searching mine. "Do you regret what you did?" I shook my head slowly. "No. I gave them a choice, and they made their bed. They thought I would always be there to clean up their mess. They thought they could walk all over me and never face the consequences." Sophia nodded, her fingers lacing through mine. "And now, I smiled faintly. Now I live my life without looking back." We sat in comfortable silence, the waves lapping gently at the shore. Back in the States, Amanda and Jessica continued to spiral. The debts mounted. The people they had wronged turned their backs on them. They were outcasts, forever paying the price for their betrayal. Amanda wrote me a letter once. It was short, apologetic, full of regret. I was wrong. We both were. We lost everything. I know it is too late, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I read the letter once, folded it neatly, and placed it in a drawer. I never responded. Some doors once closed should stay closed. As time went on, I rarely thought about Amanda and Jessica. They became part of my past, a lesson I had learned and moved on from. Life is a way of balancing things out. Newton's third law. After all, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Amanda and Jessica made their choices, and I made mine. And as I sat on that beach with Sophia by my side, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky, I realized something important. I was happy. Finally, truly happy. And that was the best revenge of all. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.